There are two types of dietary advice that are currently prevalent. One, intermittent fasting, and the other, small, frequent meals, which sometimes goes to the extent of telling us that we should eat something every 2 hours. These two pieces of advice are apparently contradictory, and yet both come from reputed experts. And therefore, one may be left wondering which one to follow. What we shall do now is to see that there are scientific reasons underlying both. And not only that, it is possible to follow both these pieces of advice on the same day, every single day. First, the rationale underlying intermittent fasting. The body does have a capacity to do without food for some time, and this it is able to do primarily through two mechanisms. The first mechanism maintains blood glucose at a satisfactory level, and this helps those organs which can live only on glucose to survive. The second mechanism is that there's a shift in the type of fuel that the body uses for getting energy. Instead of glucose, when we do not eat for some time, the body starts using fat. And through these two mechanisms, the body is able to do without food. Now, if the body has a certain capacity, the capacity improves if we use it frequently enough. And if we stop using it altogether, then that capacity weakens. And this happens also to this ability to do without food for some time. And therefore, intermittent fasting can help us maintain this capacity by putting it to use every day during this period of fasting. Besides that, fasting also helps us improve self control, and there are spiritual benefits also of fasting, but we shall not go into those. Now, the rationale underlying small, frequent meals. Now, eating is a sort of a challenge to the body. The sudden entry of a large amount of nutrients into the body requires certain mechanisms to come into play. And the challenge that the meal poses to the body, the challenge that the meal poses to these mechanisms, which cope with the sudden entry of nutrients, depends on the size of the meal. And therefore, a small meal can be handled much more easily than a large meal. This includes the capacity to digest as well as the capacity to utilize the food. And therefore, small meals do help. And if the meals have to be small, then they should be frequent so that we don't starve, we get enough food. That is the rationale underlying small, frequent meals. Apart from that, some people have a tendency to develop acidity. And if we keep eating small, frequent meals, then the acid has always food available in the stomach to act upon. And if this food is not available, if there's a long interval between meals, then these people who have this capacity to secrete more acid, the acid will start acting on the wall of the stomach. So we don't leave the stomach idle. We don't let this acid be without any work to do. And by taking small, frequent meals, we are able to prevent this acid from acting on the wall of the stomach because it always has some food available to act upon. Apart from this, there are some individuals who have a compromised capacity to digest and utilize food. And on top of that, there are certain seasons and certain times of the day during which the capacity to digest food falls. And therefore, if a person whose digestive capacity is weak, during a season when the digestive capacity is in any case low, eats a heavy meal at a time of the day when the digestive capacity is on the decline, then this person may fall ill. And therefore, by taking small meals at a time, this person is able to stay healthy, stable to stay well. Apart from that, eating also gives a certain amount of psychological satisfaction. And therefore, one way of beating stress is to turn to food repeatedly. We'll not get into those other psychological reasons and all that, which make a person eat again and again and overeat. But the important thing is that small, frequent meals can be helpful in many ways. Now, let's see how we can reconcile both these pieces of advice, practice both these pieces of advice. Taking an early light dinner is an almost universally accepted principle in a healthy lifestyle. So, suppose this person takes a light dinner at 7 in the evening and then takes breakfast the next day at 9 in the morning. Now, between 7 p.m. and 9 a.m. the next day, there's an interval of 14 hours. And during this period, that person is not eating anything. So, this serves the purpose of intermittent fasting. After breakfast, a light breakfast, if a person takes a fruit or tea with a few biscuits at 11 o'clock, and then lunch at 1 o'clock. Of course, the lunch should not be very light. It will be light because the person is taking small, frequent meals. But at the same time, uh, the lunch should be the heaviest meal of the day. No, heaviest is relative. So all the meals of this person are small. So the lunch also will be light, but relatively bigger. So if this person takes this lunch, his real full meal at 1 o'clock, and then once again at 3 o'clock or so, he takes some fruit. And at 5 in the evening, he takes tea or some other healthy drink with a few biscuits or cookies. And then once again, at 7 in the evening, his usual light early dinner. So that becomes the last meal for the day. So this person has been taking small, frequent meals, starting with breakfast at 9, then 11, 1 o'clock, and then 3 in the afternoon, and then 5 o'clock in the evening, and finally at 7 p.m., the last meal of the day. So he has taken small, frequent meals, and he also has this period of fasting between 7 in the evening and till 9 in the morning the next day when he has breakfast. Thank you.